know what's crazy? In America right now, there are people making $120,000 a year who panic when their card declines for a $47 purchase, and there are people making $55,000 a year who sleep peacefully every night, knowing they could lose their job tomorrow and still survive for over a year. Same country, same economy, sometimes even the same neighborhood. One owns a luxury SUV with a payment bigger than most people's rent. The other drives a paid-off Honda and has 6 figures invested quietly in index funds. One looks rich, the other actually is rich. And almost nobody understands the difference, because most people think financial freedom comes from income. It doesn't. It comes from distance. The distance between what you earn and what you need to survive. That gap is where freedom lives. And today, I'm going to show you why most people destroy that gap without realizing it, through habits that feel normal, socially acceptable, and even successful. This isn't about becoming cheap. This isn't about living like a monk. This is about understanding a brutal truth. Every object you own is taking money from your future. Not just once, every single month. And once you truly understand that, you'll never look at spending the same way again. Because the real financial killers in life are rarely dramatic. It's not gambling. It's not one terrible decision. It's thousands of tiny, harmless purchases, slowly building a lifestyle that traps you. A bigger apartment, a newer phone, extra subscriptions, furniture upgrades, kitchen gadgets, storage bins for things you forgot you owned, and eventually your entire income becomes a machine designed to support your stuff. That's when people become financially fragile. Not because they're stupid, but because they accidentally built a life that's too expensive to maintain. And the scary part? Most people don't realize it until something goes wrong. A layoff, a medical bill, a recession, a divorce. Suddenly, the lifestyle they spent years building turns into a financial prison, and this is exactly where minimalists think differently. Minimalists don't ask, "Can I afford this?" They ask, "What will this cost me after I buy it?" That question changes everything, because every purchase has 2 prices. The first price is visible, the second price follows you for years. Let's talk about the second price, because this is where people unknowingly destroy their financial future. Imagine someone buys a $4,000 couch. Most people think the cost is $4,000. Wrong. Now that couch needs space. Bigger spaces mean higher rent or higher mortgage payments. That couch needs cleaning, protection plans, maintenance, maybe matching furniture, decor to complete the room. And eventually, it creates a psychological standard. Now normal couches feel cheap. Now your entire taste level changes. One purchase silently upgrades your future spending habits. That's the hidden price. And this effect compounds across your whole life. People buy a luxury car. Then suddenly, normal parking feels unacceptable. Normal hotels feel low-end. Normal clothes don't match the image anymore. One expensive object creates an expensive identity, and identities are expensive to maintain. This is why high-income people often stay broke, not because they lack money, because their lifestyle expands faster than their income. Every raise becomes permission to consume more, never freedom. You've probably seen this happen. Someone gets a promotion. 3 months later they have a more expensive apartment, a luxury car payment, new furniture, higher monthly expenses, and somehow they still feel broke. That's because income alone changes nothing. Margin changes everything. A person earning $60,000 and spending $35,000 is financially stronger than someone earning $150,000 while spending $145,000. The second person just has more expensive stress. And here's where things get uncomfortable. A lot of what people buy isn't for usefulness. It's emotional. People shop because they're bored, lonely, anxious, stressed, insecure. Modern consumer culture turned spending into therapy. That's why people buy things they never use, because they weren't buying the object, they were buying the feeling of progress, status, control, excitement, validation. But feelings fade, payments don't, and eventually people wake up surrounded by possessions they barely care about, while feeling more financially trapped than ever. That's why rule number 1 is this. Rule number 1, stop asking, "Can I buy this?" Start asking, "How many hours of my life will this cost?" This single shift destroys impulse spending, because money is renewable. Time isn't. If you make $30 an hour after taxes and you buy something for $300, that object cost you 10 hours of your life. Not $300, 10 hours. Now think deeper. If that item only gets used twice, you traded 10 hours of your life for 2 moments of temporary excitement. Suddenly, the math feels different, and this gets terrifying when you calculate major lifestyle expenses. A luxury SUV payment might equal 25 to 40 hours of labor every single month. That means you're working an extra week every month just to own a vehicle that mostly sits parked. People don't realize how much of their life energy gets consumed maintaining appearances. Minimalists understand this deeply. That's why they buy fewer things, but better things. They don't chase quantity. They chase utility. Because utility creates value. Ego creates debt. And this leads to rule number 2. Rule number 2, never upgrade a working item out of boredom. This rule alone can make someone wealthy over time. Because modern culture is built on manufactured dissatisfaction, your phone works perfectly, but suddenly the camera is outdated. Your TV still functions, but now there's a thinner version. Your car runs flawlessly, but there's a redesigned model with new headlights. Companies spend billions convincing you that functioning products are somehow inadequate. Why? Because if people only replaced things when they actually broke, entire industries would collapse. Think about smartphones. Most people replace phones every 2 to 3 years, but modern phones can easily last 6 to 8 years for the average user. The difference between replacement and usefulness costs people tens of thousands over a lifetime, and the same pattern repeats everywhere. Furniture, shoes, cars, kitchen appliances, watches, home decor. People are trapped in endless upgrade cycles, not because they need better things, because novelty became an addiction. Minimalists escape this trap by asking one simple question: is this solving a real problem or just creating temporary excitement? That question saves fortunes, because excitement fades fast, but financial freedom compounds forever. Now here's something almost nobody talks about. Owning too much stuff doesn't just hurt your bank account. It damages your attention. Researchers have found that clutter increases stress hormones and reduces focus. Your brain constantly processes the visual noise around you, meaning every pile of unused clothes, every overstuffed drawer, every crowded garage is quietly draining mental energy. This is why clean spaces feel calming, not because they're aesthetically pleasing, because your brain finally stops processing chaos. Minimalists aren't obsessed with empty rooms, they're obsessed with mental clarity. And clarity changes financial behavior. When your environment is simpler, you think more clearly, you make decisions faster, you waste less, you consume less impulsively. You stop shopping for emotional stimulation because your life already feels lighter. That's why minimalism often creates a surprising side effect. People become calmer, not just wealthier. And this brings us to one of the most powerful financial rules nobody teaches. Rule number 3, create friction between yourself and spending. Most people think discipline creates wealth. Wrong. Systems create wealth. Because discipline eventually fails, everyone gets emotional. Everyone gets tired. Everyone has weak moments. Minimalists know this, so they don't rely on motivation. They redesign their environment. Here's what that looks like. Delete shopping apps. Remove saved credit cards. Unsubscribe from marketing emails. Wait 24 hours before non-essential purchases. Automate investing the moment your paycheck hits. Make spending harder, make saving automatic. This sounds simple, but it changes behavior dramatically because human beings follow the path of least resistance. If buying something takes 10 seconds, you'll buy impulsively. If investing happens automatically before you even see the money, you'll build wealth without thinking. Environment beats willpower almost every time. And the 24-hour rule alone is life-changing because most desires are temporary. People think they want something desperately. Then, 24 hours later, they barely care. That emotional cooling period eliminates an enormous amount of unnecessary spending. And here's the part nobody expects. Minimalism doesn't make life feel smaller. It makes life feel more intentional. That's the difference. You stop buying random things and start spending aggressively on what genuinely improves your life. Minimalists will spend heavily on things they deeply value: health, experiences, quality sleep, freedom, time, education. But they stop wasting money trying to impress strangers, because eventually mature people realize something important. Nobody is thinking about your stuff as much as you think they are. Most people are too busy worrying about themselves: the expensive watch, the luxury car, the designer clothes. Most of the time, people notice them for 3 seconds, then return to their own problems. Meanwhile, you stay trapped making payments for years. That trade is horrible. And once you fully understand this, your entire relationship with money changes, because real wealth isn't visible. Real wealth is invisible. It's the investments nobody sees, the debt you don't have, the freedom to leave toxic situations, the ability to survive economic chaos calmly. That's real luxury. Let me tell you something uncomfortable. Most people don't own their possessions. Their possessions own them. Not physically, financially, mentally, emotionally. People think buying something is the end of a transaction. It's usually the beginning of one. Because once you own something, that thing starts demanding resources from your life: space, attention, maintenance, insurance, repairs, protection, organization, upgrades, and most dangerously, future income. That's why two people with the same paycheck can live in completely different realities. One person uses money to buy freedom. The other uses money to buy obligations disguised as success. And the scary part is this: modern culture rewards the second person more visibly. People praise the appearance of wealth far more than actual financial stability. Nobody sees your emergency fund. Nobody compliments your index funds. Nobody notices your low stress levels, but they notice the car, the apartment, the designer logo, the lifestyle. So people quietly sacrifice peace to maintain appearances, and they do it for years, sometimes decades. This is exactly why rule number 4 changes lives. Rule number 4: count everything you own. This sounds extreme until you try it. Go count your clothes, every shirt, every jacket, every pair of shoes. Most people think they own around 20 shirts. Then they count and discover they own 63. That moment changes something psychologically, because vague ownership creates unconscious consumption. Precise awareness creates control. Minimalists count because counting destroys illusion. You can't keep telling yourself, "I don't buy that much," after discovering you own 14 coffee mugs, 37 unused apps, 52 kitchen gadgets, and enough clothes for 3 different versions of your personality. And here's what's fascinating. The moment people become aware of quantity, their desire to accumulate weakens, because buying item number 4 feels reasonable. Buying item number 47 feels ridiculous. Awareness interrupts autopilot behavior. That's why stores are designed to prevent awareness. No clocks, no windows, no reminders of how much you already own. Consumer culture survives on unconsciousness. Minimalists break that cycle through visibility. And this leads directly into another financial trap almost nobody talks about. Rule number 5. Understand the lifestyle multiplier effect. This rule explains why one purchase quietly creates 10 more. Here's an example. Someone buys a luxury SUV. Simple purchase, right? No. Now they want premium detailing, higher insurance coverage, nicer parking environments, better neighborhoods, more expensive vacations that fit the image, maybe even different clothes to match the identity. One object upgrades the expected standard of everything around it. That's the multiplier effect, and it quietly destroys wealth. People don't realize they're not buying one expensive thing. They're buying an ecosystem. A boat needs storage, maintenance, fuel, equipment, repairs, registration. A luxury home needs expensive furniture, decor, landscaping, higher utility bills, more cleaning, higher property taxes, more maintenance. Every lifestyle expansion creates supporting expenses, and those supporting expenses become permanent. This is why people making six figures still feel trapped. They accidentally built a life with massive maintenance costs, not because they're irresponsible, because nobody taught them to calculate the full ecosystem price of ownership. Minimalists think differently. Before buying anything major, they ask, what else will this purchase force me to buy? That question prevents financial disasters, because often the real cost is 2 times or 3 times higher than the sticker price. And here's the truth nobody wants to hear. A lot of people don't actually want the object. They want the identity attached to it. The luxury car says, I'm successful. The designer clothes say, I matter. The expensive apartment says, I've made it. But identity spending is endless, because external validation expires fast. The dopamine fades. Then people buy again, and again, and again, trying to purchase a permanent feeling using temporary objects. That cycle never ends. Minimalists escape it by building identity internally instead of materially. Their confidence comes from skills, health, freedom, self-respect, financial stability, not consumption, and that difference changes everything. Now let's talk about something deeper, because this next rule separates financially calm people from financially anxious people. Rule number 6, define enough before society defines it for you. This may be the most important financial principle in the entire video. Most people never define enough, which means they spend their entire lives chasing moving goalposts. First, they want the nicer apartment, then the luxury car, then the bigger house, then private schools, then status vacations, then luxury experiences, and somehow satisfaction never arrives. Why? Because comparison has no finish line. There will always be someone richer, someone younger, someone more successful, someone with a better lifestyle. If your definition of success depends on comparison, you will stay emotionally poor forever. Minimalists understand something most people never learn. The fastest way to feel rich is to reduce the number of things you need to feel rich. That sentence alone can change your life. Because wealth is not income. Wealth is low dependency. The less you require to feel okay, the harder life becomes to control you. Think about that carefully. A person who needs $15,000 a month to sustain their identity is fragile. A person who genuinely feels fulfilled on $4,000 a month is powerful. Why? Because lower dependency creates optionality, and optionality is the highest form of wealth. Optionality means you can leave a toxic job, you can survive layoffs, you can start over, you can take risks, you can walk away from manipulation, you can buy time. And time is the one thing wealthy people secretly value more than luxury. That's why financially intelligent people stop obsessing over looking rich, because looking rich often prevents becoming free. Now here's where minimalism becomes psychological instead of financial. Most overconsumption comes from emotional discomfort. People shop when they feel empty, bored, rejected, unimportant. Shopping gives temporary control, temporary excitement, temporary escape. But eventually, the emotional high fades, and the financial pressure remains. That's why cluttered lives often reflect cluttered emotional states. People accumulate objects hoping they'll fill internal gaps. But objects can't solve emotional insecurity. Only self-awareness can do that. Minimalists slowly realize this. That's why many of them eventually stop asking, "What do I want to buy?" and start asking, "What am I actually feeling right now?" That question interrupts emotional spending completely, because sometimes you don't need Amazon. You need sleep, or purpose, or connection, or rest, or a healthier life. And this is why minimalism often creates emotional peace alongside financial peace. Less noise externally creates less noise internally. Now let's talk about the rule that completely changes long-term wealth. Rule number 7, buy back your future, not temporary excitement. Every dollar you spend has two possible futures. It can become a temporary object or a permanent income-producing asset. That's the real decision people are making constantly. Spend $500 today or invest it. Most people only see what they gain from spending. Minimalists see what they lose, because invested money compounds, and compounding is unbelievably powerful. A person investing $500 monthly from age 25 to 45 can easily end up with hundreds of thousands of dollars. But the average person never sees this clearly, because the brain values immediate pleasure more than future freedom. That's why people sabotage themselves financially while fully understanding basic math. Emotion beats logic in the short term. Systems beat emotion in the long term. That's why wealthy minimalists automate everything. Investing becomes non-negotiable, not optional. They don't wait to feel disciplined. They remove the decision entirely. And over time, something incredible happens. Their investments begin generating freedom. At first, it's small, then noticeable, then life-changing. Suddenly, emergencies don't feel catastrophic. Suddenly, work stress decreases. Suddenly, they're not terrified of economic downturns, because money in the bank creates psychological stability that consumption never can. This is the irony modern culture hides from people. The feeling most people are trying to buy through luxury actually comes from financial security. Not possessions, security. That calm feeling wealthy people have? It's rarely because of their stuff. It's because they know they're safe, and safety changes human behavior. Now let me leave you with something important. Minimalism is not about empty rooms. It's not about deprivation. It's not about owning 12 objects and living like a robot. Real minimalism is much simpler. It's removing everything that adds weight to your life, but not value. That's it. And once people experience that feeling, they rarely go back, because they realize freedom feels better than consumption. A calm nervous system feels better than luxury branding. A paid-off life feels better than impressing strangers, and eventually something shifts permanently. You stop seeing money as a tool for showing status, and start seeing it as a tool for building independence. That's when real wealth begins. Not when income rises, when dependency falls, because at the end of the day, the wealthiest person in the room is not the one spending the most. It's the one who needs the least to feel complete.